Good evening. Welcome to the city of West Miami. Today we have a special agenda commission meeting, actually a special commission meeting. We have the tentative public hearing for the city budget 2016-17. Today is Tuesday, September the 6th, 2016 at 7:35 for the Pledge of Allegiance. Lieutenant?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Mayor Eduardo Mujina.
Present.
Vice Mayor Candida Blanca.
Yes.
Commissioner Juan Blanes.
Present.
Commissioner Ronda Rodriguez. Commissioner Luciano Suarez.
Yes.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
No. Next item, please.
Item 3, citizen presentations.
Does
Anybody
anybody
for-
register for citizen presentation?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next item.
Item 4, special public meeting agenda items under public hearings. This is the tentative budget. Item 4A, submission of the tentative city budgets for fiscal year 2016-2017 by city manager.
Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And following the trim calendar, the Truth in Millage, which is the State Department that regulates our budget proceedings, for the record, on July 14th, the city manager's office submitted the preliminary budget in accordance to the trim guidelines. At that meeting, we issued an 11-page memorandum addressing those items that we needed to address in the budget, such as the tentative millage rate, the garbage fee, your separate enterprise funds, the values as required for the purpose of disclosure, the assessed values that we had received from the property appraiser's office. We highlighted those ticket items on the expense side that would obviously require additional monies or capital improvement dollars, such as the $60,000 as one of the examples that were cited that we set aside so that we can commence to address the most dangerous sidewalk situations and have a plan of action moving forward. We also addressed that the theme for this coming year's budget is the clock is ticking in our favor. That being said, the message this year was that the city needed to do something to start building reserves. Obviously, after a bad economy and some decisions made over the last 10 years, the city depleted most of its reserves, and the preliminary budget basically set aside $100,000 of the addition of the $260,000 in new revenue. We set aside $100,000 for reserves. That is true today in the tentative budget, and we've taken into account changes that have occurred as denoted by my updated memo, and I'll go through that in a minute. We have addressed everything that we believe can become a financial liability. And for those things that may come up out of the norm, you have a contingency fund, which today funds at a higher level than it did at the preliminary budget hearing. The preliminary budget was presented to the mayor and city commission at the meeting of July 20th. And again, we follow some very strict guidelines in the process on the budget, and we cannot hold our public hearings the same day that Miami-Dade County Public Schools holds their budget, or the same day that the Board of County Commissioners hold their budgets. So initially, we had talked about setting aside September 7th, which would be tomorrow, for the budget hearing, and that changed over the last few meetings as requested by our office to comply with trim. And that's why the budget hearing is being advertised for this evening. Residents of the city should be in possession of their proposed tax bill, and that contains assessed information, and it also contains information on tonight's meeting. Those were sent to every single property owner that owns property, either commercial or residential, in the city of West Miami. And those were sent out by the property appraiser's office. There is no proposed increase to the millage rate. Our millage rate is 6.8858. 1 mil of that of the millage rate is dedicated to Parks and Recreation pursuant to Ordinance 133, as it has been for the last 35 years at least. And what has occurred is that we have seen an increase in sales, and the amounts of the sales are higher than in the past, and also some new development that has been instrumental in the cities being able to capture new dollars and recurring dollars moving forward. Since our submittal and our many meetings, and I want to thank each and every member of the commission for the time that you all have taken to meet with me on numerous occasions throughout this summer to discuss the budget, discuss where the allocations are at, and understand the financing component that comes with the budget. So I thank you for that, and so that we can get a little bit of guidance on the projects that you're all interested in seeing through. That being said, during the month of August, we heard from the county, and we have made some adjustments on some of our categories. In a memo dated August 25th, 2016, we projected a PTP, which is the surtax, which is the half-cent penny tax that was passed by voter referendum back in 2002. And we have a slight projected increase, and these numbers are provided to us by Miami-Dade County. There is a transportation share, which is an 80% distribution, and this is on a per capita basis, and you have a transit allocation, which is worth 20% of the overall collections by Miami-Dade County. We have adjusted those numbers from the preliminary budget. We have eliminated the payment, the rent payment, from the preliminary budget from the city's building department, because this year we're going to have to dip into reserves to balance the building department budget. We have increased our lien search fees pending an amendment to the resolution authorizing the city to collect an amount of $150 per lien search fee commencing October 1st. If you all pass this legislation, this is coming to you, I believe, tomorrow evening for consideration. And this will affect title companies that actually do the legal process anytime there is a change in properties, a sale, or a refinance taking place. The reason for the increase is for the last 16 years, our fees had remained the same, and we have not taken into account that we have to tax our city resources to go out and conduct an inspection on properties, get a reading of everything that's owed in water, sewer, stormwater, garbage collection, and we need to disclose the code enforcement violations to these title companies. So a lot of work on the part of staff needs to be incorporated into the lien document, estoppel letters, as Mr. Villalobos would call these letters. So we're proposing an increase on that, and we'll deal with that tomorrow. On the expense side, we've adjusted your FICA taxes, your Florida retirement system, because we will be bringing to you tomorrow night the ratification of the contract between the Police Benevolent Association and the City of West Miami, and the membership has voted. And so we took the set aside that we have, and we actually put it in your salary and benefits category to give you an exact account per line item of what the city is looking to spend next year. Thankfully, our general liability insurance renewal rate came in lower than originally anticipated. And as discussed with you, we have reduced the overall amount of $25,000 and given the credits to your various departments. The contingency fund has increased to $34,798. What is contingency? Contingency in the general fund in your 529-429 account consists of anything that may come up throughout the course of the year that is not budgeted or contemplated in the budget, any unforeseen emergencies. This is separate and aside from the small allocation that we have to a hurricane fund, which we always like to budget $10,000 every year in the event that there is a storm and some pre-storm preparations are needed. We are also increasing our projected general fund reserves to an amount of $111,291. So definitely the message continues this year to be, let's address reserves. Let's try to build our reserves to a level that the city needs or should have it, which would be 6 months worth of expenses in the event that there is some type of financial crisis. We have adjusted the first year repayment schedule for the Public Works Motor Pool Front Office expansion for the interest-only portion of the repayment schedule. If you will recall, at the time of the submittal of the preliminary budget, the city had not closed the deal on the loan that we did through Estrada Hinojosa with City National Bank. And we did not know what the repayment schedule on that was going to be. We have since closed on that loan, and the first year on that loan will be an interest-only repayment, which resulted in a reduction of the line item from $50,000, which was a place marker that we anticipated. We reduced it to $34,000. That's why we have been able to increase your contingency fund allocation and also increase your projected reserves in your general fund. Again, the general fund police department includes the new salaries based on the assumption that this contract will be ratified before the mayor and the city commission. The contract is only for sworn personnel. The benefits have been adjusted to include the FICA, the retirement, and any and all contributions as mandated by your collective bargaining agreement contract. We have one position in the streets division, obviously, that will that is a 25-hour bi-weekly work schedule for a high school intern, that one of the interns that worked with us this year during the summer. It's going to anticipate for 12 and a half hours per week, which is the maximum that she will be allowed to work based on her school schedule, to assist in the public works. As you are aware, the building in the back is not only responsible now for the building department, it is responsible for occupational license, venue rentals, anything dealing in public services, tree trimming, street sweeping, any other public works matter that comes up is dealt with in the back office, and the workload has increased. Our population has slowly but surely increased. We have not grown mileage-wise, but we have grown in terms of mandates and projects. And so we believe that this third body, for a limited number of biweekly hours at a minimum rate of pay, which is $8.25, will help fill in those gaps. The PTP we touched upon, which is your surtax money. This year, the city projects that we will have to dip into the building department fund to balance it. We have a surplus of over $119,000 there. We will need to take $83,972 from that budget to balance this enterprise fund. This fund, by statute, must operate independently from the general fund. Mr. Penna and I had a meeting today with our city engineers, and we discussed at length that in the near future, we will be probably coming to you with some recommendations to increase building permit fees to be pretty much competitive with what other cities are doing. And I know, Mr. Mayor, this is a project that is very dear to your heart. It's a service that you wanted to bring to the city of West Miami to make it easier for the residents to obtain their permits here, and it's worked out very well. We're executing, what, about 400 or 500 permits a year, Mr. Penna? Am I correct in that assumption? Between building permits and city permits. However, our city permit fees have not been increased for 20 years or 25 years, and our building permit fees are not competitive to what other municipalities are charging. And as such, we have to pay engineering fees, and it's depleting the reserves. So we need to revisit that, and we will be coming back to you with a recommendation to make sure that this fund, moving forward, continues to stay alive on its own, because that's the way that the statute mandates it. We have in the recreation fund, which is nourished with 1 mil of property tax dollars and some other forms of income, such as membership fees, summer camp fees, after school care program. We have made some changes that assume a surplus at the West Miami Recreation Center. Our surplus, we project, will be $19,125. This department and Director John Michael Lopez is here this evening, is doing very well. We have contemplated under the leadership of Chairman Blanes in this department, and I know that this is something that at times has commingled with the educational component. We've managed to include some numbers in there to open the park on Sundays, which was one of the last remaining sacrifices that the city made during the difficult years. We have taken into consideration staffing the park on Sundays to allow the residents time to come in and obviously use the amenities. As of this writing, there are no other changes that have been included in the budget, and of course, this all is subject to your consideration, your approval on a tentative note this evening. In the presentation and in our individual meetings, I advised you that all the changes in the budget had been highlighted in yellow, your working copies, and that the preliminary page, anytime there's a change, we left the old page so you had a comparison to work with. We folded the preliminary budget submittal page, and in front of it, all the changes are highlighted in yellow. I believe that we went through those numbers. We've addressed your questions during our individual meetings, and that pretty much sums it all. The only thing that the record needs to reflect is that we must advertise a notice of tax increase. That doesn't mean that you are increasing the millage, but because our values have gone up as determined by the property appraiser's office, and sales in the area and new constructions have come into play, we have to advertise by law, as published by the trim calendar. We have to publish a notice of tax increase adjacent to our budget summary ad. That concludes my tentative presentation, and I know we've been over this time and time again during our meetings. We have all the increases, all the new capital improvements, a repayment schedule of the loan, your enterprise funds. There's no suggested increases to your water or your sewer or your stormwater fees at this time. There are some proposed increases which will be dealing with those increases, and some recommendations in the pipeline moving forward, but nothing affecting this immediate budget, with the exception of the lien search fees. At this time, I welcome your comments, your questions, any concern that you've had on the presentation, or anything that you believe has been left unsaid. We've talked about grants, we've talked about what an average resident may expect to receive in terms of paying more taxes based on their assessed schedules. We've given you some illustrations. We've given you what the yearly real estate and property tax revenues have meant in terms of decrease in percentages or increase in percentages over the last, I want to say, starting in 2006. So over the last 10 years, we've included your senior homestead exemptions that are granted by the qualifying mechanism that entitles them to the senior homestead exemption. And we've kept you abreast of each and every change in the pipeline concerning your budget. So I would be more than happy to take your questions at this time. And I would like the record to reflect that your general fund has a total of $5,422,443 as its total revenue and expense. That includes the $111,000 in reserves.
Any questions for the manager or any comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Madam Manager, here in the preliminary budget message, Public Works recommend additional meters to be installed around the area surrounding the new Publix and the new developments. I'm totally opposed to that idea. Publix has a great parking space, and the new development also have parkings in their buildings, and I'm totally opposed to increase the numbers of parking meters in our city. I think our city is a family-oriented city, and I don't think we need to penalize our residents with the parking meters around the city. We are going to spend in the meters. We are going to spend in the guy who take the check the hours, whoever is. It may be produced some without peanuts. Our residents and our familiar way of life is more important than those peanuts dollar. I recommend at the table, read this, and I recommend you take it out from this preliminary message, take the parking meter installation, additional parking meter installation. I am totally opposed to that. I think we don't need to penalize our residents with new meters. We don't need it. I don't see the need. That's my
Right.
in this moment, my consideration.
Okay, any further comments or suggestions? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Commissioner.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Suarez. You know, we are a very small community, and taking under consideration that what differentiates us from other cities is the small town type of feeling, and you know, as we progress, you know, and change, you know, these changes will definitely, you know, change the way that we looked previously. You know, the old saying that all progress is change, but not all change is progress. Taking that under consideration, I think that we should reconsider putting more meters in. In reality, it's not going to bring in a lot much. I mean, it's just going to, you know, it's I don't really think it's worth it. Can you elaborate, Madam
Yes.
Manager, so we can be clear on it?
Yes, I can elaborate, and this concept was following or mirroring what we did by the restaurant, which was a situation that we needed to address because of the parking nightmare that we had off of 57th Avenue and Southwest between 8th and 9th. We thought that placing meters, and Mr. Penna looked at and evaluated at placing meters would benefit some kind of structured parking, and it would help reduce the police having been called, you know, being called out there and having to respond to parking issues. However, the commissioner did bring it up to me during our several meetings on the budget, and I wholeheartedly understand. The revenue loss, there's really, we projected that we were going to receive more money than we're receiving from the parking meters. And so if we have to forego that item, I can tell you that there are other matters that I need to bring up with the surtax at the final public hearing on, based on a meeting that we had today with the city engineer, that would probably take up the $17,000. So, I would, if that is the motion that somebody would like to make, you're going to see a possible change between now and the 21st of September in that line item.
And
I
I
mean,
agree
this
with
is
you.
a budget that is submitted, taking everything that could possibly come up during the course of next year, as we do, and planning for it. But it is subject to your approval and your consideration, and that's why we bring it to you, and we break it down to you, and we highlight it for you, and things that may become an issue. So if this is an issue for the commission, I can tell you that this issue is going to be revisited based on some other imperative needs that we have in that category.
I agree with you that the parking around the restaurant, Latin American restaurant area, needed to have structure. And definitely the parking meters there has helped, but I don't see any other area of our city that requires that sort of thing.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's my feeling right now.
Can I make a suggestion? I mean, this is not the final budget, so I will suggest that not only this, but any other item that between now and then, that you might think, please bring it up to the next meeting with the manager, to be included or not included on the next,
Well, don't we have to discuss here now?
This is a tentative,
among us?
so
This
Yeah.
is your
they
tentative. You need,
present to us
I
a
think,
tentative,
Commissioner, I think it's a good observation.
and we make it
Personally, I
opinion,
sit
but
on the
this is a
fence on this
tentative.
one.
This is not final.
I'd like to bring something else up.
yes,
If I
sir?
may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. The compensation for our new Parks Director, our Recreational Director, John Michael Lopez. He has definitely performed outstanding, and, you know, he is now our full-time Recreational Director, and that entails a lot of responsibility.
Yes, sir.
So, I see that his salary was brought up, but I would ask that it be considered maybe adjusting it a little higher. I know that he is deserving of it.
No question about it. John is doing an exceptional job. I mean, he's here. We've talked about it. You've all been provided with correspondence on our successful 2016 summer camp program. And we have actually budgeted his beginning salary as the permanent director commencing October 1st at $42,000. John doesn't bring a lot of experience. He was there shadowing the former director. He deserves definitely a higher compensation, but we are taking baby steps on the way back to recovery. And so we've wanted to be very careful because, again, we go back to the issue, all of our department directors, to be quite frank with you, are underpaid. If you compare us to other municipalities, yes, we're small, yes, we have limitations, and so we're being as conservative as possible. And also, this allows John an opportunity to grow with the city and not cap himself out as soon as in the next few years. I mean, we had a director working for the park, which everybody really had tremendous regard for Jim. He worked for 35 years, and I think that his compensation at the end was something like $62,000 or $63,000. after 35 years. Yes, those wages don't apply in today's world.
That was
So
my next comment.
I know that. I know that.
Well,
So-
anyways, this is just something that I want you to think about.
But I want you to know that careful thought and consideration went into it.
And yes, we have talked about it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to.
And that fund has a surplus. Again, any change to this tentative budget needs to come by way of a motion so that your vote directs me to take some action before the final budget hearing so that we can comply with all the regulations.
And I do have something else, Mr.
And
Mayor.
you can also make changes at the 11th hour on the 21st.
Okay. In regards to our lieutenant, we have 4 sergeants, each one of them making more money than our lieutenant. Our lieutenant's in charge of payroll, in charge of training, in charge of a lot of things, and a lot of responsibility is upon him. Again, he is someone that I believe that needs to be equitably compensated. So,
I couldn't agree with you more.
and I bring this up to my colleagues, our Parks Director, our Police Department Lieutenant, and I'm kind of in agreement with Commissioner Suarez as far as the parking meters go. So,
If I may give you a little bit of history on this inequity, I would like to give you an explanation. The police lieutenant was promoted after the last contract between the city and the PBA was already ratified. And obviously, you had sergeants that were with the department for many years and that were at the top of their pay scale. And so the lieutenant's position was filled at the time, and obviously there is a pay inequity which we have been aware of, and I could not agree with you more. The problem, and again, we will revisit this before the final budget hearing, but again, we have tried to minimize, if that's a good word to use, the overall expense to the department, because we have to take care of an entire city, an entire department. And I wanted this year at least that our message would be building reserves versus pay raises, or that there would be a balance between pay raises, which are deserved, believe me, I know they're deserved, and balancing a building or rebuilding reserves while taking care of the employees. But yes, there are still some inequities. We recognize that. So these we can revisit before the 21st of September.
and I have something else, Mr. Mayor. We talked about the sidewalk situation, and we had talked about that you're allocating $60,000 for the repair of sidewalks.
Yes, sir.
And we had spoken about a pot of money, an extra pot of money, not much, maybe 10 or 12 or 15,000 that we could actually maybe put it towards the, the $60,000 pot.
Yes.
So we can start addressing, the areas that the sorely need, the repair. Namely, on Sylvania and 12th Street, a gentleman that lives in the corner, he's had a cone, a red cone in front of his house, right there on the sidewalk now for,
A long time.
almost a year. So, and these are the kind of areas that we need to troubleshoot first. So,
And again, the rebuilding of the reserves went from 100 to 111,000, and we spoke about it during
Right.
our meeting.
that was.
And
yeah.
the contingency fund, I believe we increased it from 29,000, and the finance director is here and she's nodding her head yes. It seems like we know these numbers in our sleep now. It went from 29,000 to 34,000. So the commission may find it fit to reallocate those excess dollars and leaving the contingency fund as we preliminarily budgeted for it at 29,000, and using the additional $11,000, which would give you approximately $15,000 to add to your sidewalk improvement program as a first-year plan to aggressively address the sidewalk repair issues. And the root pruning, because one doesn't come without the other.
So,
Again, this is something that you all
a
need to
question for
agree
Mr.
on.
Penna. Would an additional $11,000 make a big difference?
Every dollar you put into it.
So that's something that maybe we should consider. So those are some of my thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, I also want to revisit some things here, because now it's coming that we have been through a process of a lot of development in the city. I don't mean develop in construction. I mean develop in the growing of the city. A lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of effort, and a lot of to doing the things right. Now we come in the compliant, we come in new things, and I think my recommendation is revisit also, because all this work has been done, has been performance, and will come, is that the city manager, the city clerk, they has been involved in a lot of work, paperwork, legal, many hard working. So I seen they are talking about 2.5 or so. I recommended a 5 for those two positions, because they really has been working very professional, very hard. And now what is coming now for the next 3, 4, 5 years is going to be very hard too. So, and they are doing a great job. All the cities, they are doing what in other cities they need 2 or 3 people to work, 2 or 3 persons. And they has been doing very well and efficient. That's the most important. So I recommended to revisit this to 5. Madam Manager,
I'm making a
take
note
the
of it.
numbers, please, to revisit this to,
Yes.
for the manager and clerk positions, please.
Yes, in the preliminary budget and in the tentative budget, I allocated a 2.5% as a place marker for the city manager's salary, and I allocated a 4% for the city clerk. We are proposing a 4% increase to the general workforce, and obviously a 4% for the clerk, although she's not a department director, she's part of the executive team, would give her a little bit more money because it is well-deserved. She does an outstanding job as far as I'm concerned. And so any decision on the manager's salary and on the city clerk's salary are solely under the jurisdiction of the mayor and city commission.
That's
Again,
why I'm talking about that.
yes, sir. And we spoke about that, but it's something that the commission would have to approve. And so we've taken that 2.5% into account. And again, I have to tell you that I have been doing this for 33 years, not a city manager. I've been city manager since 1994. And I can tell you that unequivocally, in all cities, employees that wear the hats that we wear with the level of responsibility that we fulfill make a lot more money than what we compensate our employees, including your city manager. So this is not personal. This is a recognition of their work. Last year, I forewent my raise, looking for better times and to assist the city. Is not the first time I've done it. I've done it a number of years. But I can tell you that folks who work in the city are committed to our labor and our mission. And
That's why I recommended to revisit that in 5 for
Correct.
the city manager and city clerk.
again, you need to vote on these issues.
I know, Yolanda.
Yes, sir.
Just want to revisit it. You bring to the table.
Voting right now, before, are we talking about voting today? Is that what you're saying, Madam Manager?
If you believe,
You need our orientation about this.
we need some tentative decisions. Again, it's nothing that is cast in stone, but it's something that we must follow some advertisement guidelines set by the state. You can make decisions at the 11th hour. You can make it on September 21st. but you can, yes, but we're talking about, that's millage, but that's not the budget itself. The millage rate has to tentatively be set. Now, once you set it, you cannot go above that. You can always maintain it flat or bring it down, which is what Mr. Villalobos, our city attorney, advised, and that is correct. But we're not talking about millage rate. We're talking about changes in our budget, revisitations in our line items in our budgets.
Madam Manager, I don't think nobody will be contemplating increase in the millage rate over here. I think we're talking about minor adjustments in the budget.
Correct.
I believe Commissioner Rodriguez has a question or comment.
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My wish list would be for me to win Powerball, lottery, scratch off, and everything, and all of the above. But since I know that's not gonna happen, I'd like to talk reality now. That's what I wish I could do, so I could give money to everyone, because everyone is beyond deserving. This is a tentative budget. It's very fiscally sound. These are place markers that have been put because we have to have place markers in our budget to go forward. As far as the city manager and the city clerk, I saw a copy of our agenda for tomorrow night, and I do believe their evaluation is on there for tomorrow night. My opinion is that this, as I said, is a very fiscally sound budget. It's good as it is today to pass, and that we discuss during their evaluation if we want to make any changes at that time. But I do believe in giving the general increase to the employees, to our general employees, it's been needed for 35 years. I mean, they are all underpaid, so I like the manager's plans of the 4% increase for the employees and then the 2.5% across the board for department directors. And I know as far as John's concerned, he was given more because it had to be adjusted because of his new responsibilities. So my opinion is this is a very fiscally sound budget. I like it, and we'll discuss the city manager and the clerk tomorrow during their evaluation.
Yes.
Thank you. For the benefit of the public, I think it's a luxury for all of us to sit here and to be able to say, I want to pay the city manager more. I want to pay our parks recreational director more, our city clerk, and our general employees. I mean, it is a luxury. I don't think that I've ever sat here and said that. I'm trying to think and trying to, yes, there's been raises given, but having a budget and so fiscally responsible, and I may add, this is at no tax increase to the resident whatsoever. We are working within the recurring revenue that has come in. Nothing has been added as far as an expense to the resident. So it is a luxury for us to be able to even consider these fine adjustments. So I'm very thankful, and I hope that next year will even be better, and that we can continue to provide the services that we do and even improve them, as we have talked about many times.
And if I may, I mean, I think it should be said time and time again, we have employees that work for the city of West Miami in both at the rec, the community center, the public works department. In our front office, we have people that have been working here for 20 years, making $25,000, $27,000 a year, which is below the poverty standards. And so it's time to slowly but surely start recognizing their labor. They are here, many of them live in the city of West Miami, they're part of this community, they earn their dollars here and they spend their dollars here. Many of them are property owners, and so they are here because our pain is their pain as well. And I felt that that the CPI, and we check with the Department of Labor, that's something we do every year. They had published the May growth and that was set at 4%. But it should be noted that we have employees here that are making $9 an hour. People can't live with $9 an hour. So those are the inequities that we've tried to address over the years. We had 7 or 8 difficult years. I don't want to say they were bad. I want to say they were difficult. And so we're trying to slowly but surely compensate them a little bit better than we have.
They were bad.
They were really bad. So, but that's in the past. That's in the past. And it should be noted that moving forward, the city should do better. There's only one of the developments that on 67th Avenue that actually came into our tax rolls as published by the property appraiser's office on June 1st. I can tell you that next year it's going to be the recurring dollars from that one development, the sale of that particular project, the Publix that has brought so much by way of beautification, convenience, shopping to our residents, the next building on 57th Avenue. So we're seeing our business corridor. I don't know whether you've noted, but slowly but surely things are changing for the better. And people are investing in our community, even those that have businesses and have had them for many years. They're actually, painting the businesses. I don't know whether you saw the old apartment building on 67th Avenue. They had not painted that building for years, and recently they painted the development to sort of mirror what is happening along the commercial corridor. So I think that next year we will be in a much better position, and maybe a position where we can even build our reserves stronger. And that would be the message, while addressing capital improvements, while addressing pay inequities, and addressing all the special projects. And some will be discussed in your agenda tomorrow. Our city is soon turning 70 years old or young, like I said in my message, depending on which way your vision and your direction is. So those are the things we need to start talking about and addressing at a time where I see gradual increases towards the positive.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll be last, I guess. I concur with every one of you, and I have the same feelings as Commissioner Rodriguez. There's a lot of people that work in the city very, very hard, and they deserve a lot more. Just keep in mind a couple of things, because I'm an analogy type of person, and I use examples too, maybe because I happen to be an architect, to visualize things. In order to have a balanced budget, it's almost like having a balloon. You fill that balloon either with water or air, and it's kind of round. But if you start pushing it, you start changing the form of the balloon. And like we all know, with any action, there's always a reaction. So if you push here, it gives up over here. So, and now, that I have children, that not only having my wife in the accounting business, but also having 2 daughters in the accounting business, I really, really appreciate the work that you do, because like you said, Commissioner Blanes, it is a luxury to push the buttons over here, but every time we push those buttons, it creates a lot of reactions over there in order for them to balance that budget. So I think it's a very responsible budget, in my opinion. Yeah, if we want to tweak it, and as long as under the advice of the city manager and under the advice of the accounting department, we should not push those buttons too much. And again, I'm not saying that I'm against your proposition. On the total contrary, I'm in total agreement. I think the manager needs to get an increase, the city clerk, the lieutenant, Parks Director, et cetera, okay? So, I mean, my suggestion is, you know, talk to the manager on an individual basis, you know, between now and then, to see what we can do. Keep in mind that for years, we depleted the reserves, and we're building the reserve. Next year, it's gonna be a better year. I mean, unless a total catastrophe happen, which I don't foresee it, you know. But, so next year will be better, and we'll do better. So, as far as, the city manager and city clerk, it is in the agenda tomorrow. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about that as well. So, besides that, Madam Manager, what do you need?
Are there any motions that you're going to entertain, like the sidewalk issue that the commissioner has brought to the forefront this evening? Are there any changes that you want to entertain this evening, or would you like to leave it for the last meeting? I mean, we need to.
In my opinion, and I don't know where the money comes and so on.
Right.
I think we have, the sidewalks, you know, we put a marker there to begin
Yes.
with. In my opinion, we should leave it alone. I know, yeah, extra dollars, you know, add up to it, and of course, it's a little better, but maybe if those can be allocated for the things that we're talking about, maybe that's something that we could do. 'Cause in all honesty, to really put a dent on the sidewalk, we gotta put in like $500,000.
Correct.
So, a couple of $1,000s are not gonna make a difference. That's my opinion. I'd rather use those dollars to any other items that we have talked about, if the budget gives us that flexibility. Okay? All right, can you read the resolution, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 4B, resolution of the City of West Miami, Florida, establishing the 2016 tentative millage rate upon all real and personal property within the city limits for the payment of the amount appropriated in the 2016-17 tentative budget by Mayor and City Commission.
Motion.
Second.
Can you call the vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Blanes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanca? Mayor Mujina?
Yes,
5-0, item passes.
thank you. Next item?
Item 4C, public hearing on the tentative city budget for fiscal year 2016-2017, all city funds by Mayor and City Commission.
Motion.
No
Just a
motion.
public hearing.
We gotta open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody wants to speak on the public hearing in
Anybody
reference to
from
the
the
budget?
public?
Okay. Close the public hearing, back to the table. Can you read Resolution D, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 4D, resolution adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2016-2017, Mayor and City Commission.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, call the vote.
Yes, Commissioner Blanes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanca? Mayor Mujina?
Yes,
5-0, item passes.
okay. Next item?
Next item, item 4E, resolution of the City of West Miami, Florida, adopting the tentative water enterprise fund budget for the year 2016-17 in the sum of $725,227.00 by Mayor and City Commission.
Motion.
Okay, call the vote.
Yes, Commissioner Rodriguez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanes?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanca? Mayor Mujina?
Yes,
5-0, item passes.
thank you. Go to the order. Anybody for the go to the order?
I just have a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just an observation. I remember on my first budget hearing that we had another manager, and we had a huge adding machine. That was the only electric thing that we have in here, and we have several adding machines with a level where you had to go back and forth. And we had to stay here to the wee hours of the night. So I'm really amazed about the efficiency that I have and the congeniality that we have on the table. So I guess I should congratulate all of us.
Thank
for
you.
that. I mean, it has
That-
come a long way.
That was a political budget, not a well thought out budget like we have right now.
Those were bad times, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? All right,
Mr. Mayor, I think we should acknowledge our guest we have this evening officially.
okay. So, go ahead.
Ginger.
Oh, Ginger.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge Ginger and
Okay.
welcome her. She's been
Okay.
very quiet throughout the meeting.
Oh, my God. yeah.
Perfect behavior. So Ginger, I
Oh my God,
commend you
there's
for your
Ginger.
perfect behavior at tonight's meeting.
All right.
Here goes.
Well, I need a motion to adjourn. All in
Motion.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Thank you.